Hi everyone, my name is Ze Yuchen. Today I'm going to talk about open source. The history. The open source was first be the foundation on the end of 19th. That's the time of the early days of computing. So the computer would like to exchange and share software. So they decided to use the original source code to share the software, and they learn from each other. There are different thoughts about open source. First is someone said the open source is a philosophy idea, and other people say that open source is a useful method to deal with the real things. And I think the open source is also a new concept about the internet. So what is the open source? The open source is a donating software for which the original code is made freely available and may be redistributed and modified. Because of the open source, there are open source software and reviewed or improved productions, and so many production and things um, rely on the open source. Today I will talk about the open source software. The open source software is a computer software with its source code made available with a license, in which the copyright holder provides the rights to study, change, and distribute the software to anyone and for any purpose. Open source software may be developed in a collaborative public manner. Also, the open source software is the most prominent example of open source development. Why we use open source? Because the open source is freely to use. People can access the open source easily and use it for themselves. And it costs less, and the money is also less to use the open source to develop or improve some applications or others. And it also has very quick implementation and is available every time on the internet. So there are so many advantages of the open source. Because the open source is helpful, so I will talk about its helpful ways for different kind of things. For the users, the users can discover the variety of applications, and the developers can share and learn from each other because the open source it can access by them. The government can use the open source to deliver values for for its citizens. And for the education, the variety of academic programs are coming from the open source. On the other hand, there are also some disadvantages of the open source. The first one is vulnerable to malicious users. It means that some users can all the users can access the open source, but some users are not that friendly. They can spot some barriers to the open source and make people cannot use the open source easily or make the make some problems for the open source. The second is do not come with extensive support. The open source is easier to access and easier to get improved or become a new applications. So it's need to be supported by the users. But some of the open source software is not that easily to access and improve. So it do not have some extensive support. Although there are two disadvantages I mentioned above, but overall I think open source is good because it has much more benefits for users, developers, uh, education, government, all of us than the disadvantages. So I think open source is better to be used. In the future, I believe that more and more people will join the open source and they will share the original source code with each other and get much better applications than before. And more good open source will be shared, and it will be very useful for the good computers or grammars. And more users get benefits from the open source, not more money or more profits. The benefits is helpful for the users and all of us. So I believe that we will be the real owner of the open source in the future. Thank you for watching.